Okay, so welcome back to the Hearth, everyone. We are um, going to have another Hearth conversation about what we call outlet dynamics. And outlet dynamics is basically every one of us has a way that we complete things. It's the way that we do endings. And if you study it, as we do first in our training and then in our work in pre and perinatal somatics, we see that there is a pretty consistent pattern in how we complete things. And one really simple way might be for you to notice, how do you leave a party, or how do you leave an event? Are you the person who can't leave and hangs out forever? Or are you the person who sneaks out before it's over, or something in between? And in pre and perinatal somatics, we really come to an understanding about how the way we do endings is affected by early life, and specifically conception and birth. I'll stop there and hand it off to one of you two.
Well, I can sort of pick up there. I was the one that really wanted to talk about the outlet. Um, that's one of my big patterns that I've had to really overcome. It's one of my outlet was really challenging in my birth. And I don't think my conception was that challenging. But I know that what happens at conception and discovery actually shows up in the outlet. So it can be amplified. Um, But my outlet was a near-death experience that I spent a good 10 years of my pre and perinatal somatic exploration just trying to extinguish the impact of that. And uh, so for me, my out in the outlet at the ending of things, I was the one that would slip out the back, Jack. Never said goodbye, and I'd quickly leave. And before I would get to the leaving part, I would get very agitated. So I would sit in circles and then my feet would start to go like this. You know how those people that their feet start to go like this. And uh and I just found endings excruciating. I would never do it. And even when I would exercise, like I have a really great exercise bike and I'd be almost to at 1 minute away and I'd be, oh, that's enough. You know, I there's a way that completion, even though I was good at school and completed my assignments and things, I'm usually early. But when it comes to events and completions and uh, you know how at the end of all these trainings, everyone wants to take pictures and stuff. Ah, the worst, the worst. You gotta stand around and uh, but it's like, but I tried very hard to uh, extinguish that. Um, I lived in a community in Vermont before I moved to Virginia. I had a ceremony and I made food for people. I invited them. I made them, this is my community there. I made them all gifts. I purchased things for them. I told stories about each one of them. I gave them a special gift. I sang them a song and I fed them. And that was very satisfying. And there was something about being able to have a bridge at the end and allowed me to deeply appreciate what I have been through. And so that is what I help that helps me with the outlet. But I know a lot of people have challenges at the end of things. Anxiety can go up and collapse can happen and the need to be rescued can happen here. Uh, or So I think that really bringing some awareness to how we complete things before endings and then beginnings. Um, every ending is also a beginning. Kristin, do you want to add
Yeah.
it?
Well, thanks, Kate. I really enjoyed that story. I like how you say the bridge, and I can imagine how that felt very different to sort of be in ceremony and celebrate with people and, yeah, to complete your time. And where were you in Vermont?
I was in southern Vermont.
Yeah.
I was part of a wilderness community there.
Yeah. And I just appreciate it. I mean, you're giving an example of you like leaving things early and finishing things early and turning them in. And I think I'm the opposite of that. I'm often like, I used to be more like one of the last people to leave and would really drag my feet in completing something. And yeah, and for me, it wasn't so much the ending itself, but what happened afterwards that then made me not want to complete. Um, with the loss that I experienced after birth, really made me then not want to not want something to end. And so I can feel myself like I used to really drag my feet. I would be definitely the last person in an event and just sort of lingering around and not doing anything in particular, but just hanging out, not wanting to miss anything, not wanting to miss any connection that there might be. Um, and yeah, and I think for me, I didn't have a ceremony or anything. It was more about realizing why I lingered and and really feeling the grief that I had experienced back then that I was never reflected or didn't have the space held for that. And once I think I was met in that, the other side of it came out where then it was just like, okay, I don't need to linger anymore. I really feel like, okay, when something's done, I want to get going. I could feel that impulse that was actually naturally there at the time. But yeah, I was caught in what happens next. And so, in terms of outlet dynamics, it can be what happens during the journey of that process of completion, but it can also be about wanting to avoid or stop what comes next after that. Um, and yeah, I think it impacts us in so many different ways. And it's in some ways, a simple thing to look at of just how do we complete, our day or an event or turning in assignments and uh, what is that and how do we get the support. And for myself, also just asking for some support of like I'm completing something can you just think of me as I'm doing this can be a layer of support for that. Yeah, I feel it really helped me a lot to know what my resistance and why that resistance was there for me. Yeah.
So, one of the things you were talking about earlier, Kristen, before the recording is how the term outlet dynamics comes from birth, that there's a pelvic inlet, there's mid pelvis, and then there's the pelvic outlet. And so often this dynamic is expressed at birth, but it can also be ancestral. It can be something that happens at conception. And then just the way we talk about Stanislav Grof's coex, where similar kind of experiences get layered. Then there's a way that these outlet dynamics repeat throughout our life in different phases. And it can be in as simple as like how I go to sleep, but it can also be how I complete university or something larger. And for me, in my birth, there was a really great, mellow, solid beginning, confusion in the middle, and then a chaotic ending. And one funny story for me is that this chaos used to really come up in my nervous system when I got ready for trips. So as I was in the completion phase, getting ready to go, there would be a lot of nervous system dysregulation, and I would feel this chaos of my birth. I didn't know what it was for so long until I did this work. And then I had this little dog named Einstein. Kristin knew Einstein, and he was this little dysregulated Chihuahua. And he would, when I would get into that nervous system dysregulation right before I was leaving for a trip, as I was in the outlet dynamics before leaving, he would start running around the house screaming. So he became an outer reflection of that chaos inside me. And so watching him, having him reflect me, helped me, because the screaming was so unpleasant. I learned how to transform my outlet dynamics before a trip. So it was so helpful having that reflection and having that information, so I could be more intentional about really slowing myself down. And when I felt, I still feel that chaos, even though I've done so much work and I have so much understanding about it. But now I let myself slow down so I can really have more choice about how I move through that outlet dynamics in a more intentional way.
Thanks, Eileen. I feel like reflecting the moving through something and with an intention. So I sort of feel like that intentional energy for those of us who have an outlet dynamic that's challenging. I mean, I think we all probably have some degree of outlet dynamic. And, in the ideal world, as we come out, people are there and are gentle, are welcoming, and are regulated and slow and can receive us and then put us on our parent. That didn't happen to most of us. At least the younger people maybe. But if you set your intention to move through it, I mean, that sounds really good to me. And unbeknownst to me, I think until we started talking tonight about outlet, it's like I'm in the middle of completing my life here in Virginia and moving to North Carolina. And I had asked my community for a ceremony. How do I do this in a way that's intentional? And I think I have a wonderful thing my family and I are going to do to help say goodbye to this house and this life and the land where we've been, and then bridge to the next place and be able to integrate all of that, that way of saying goodbye to a way of saying hello to our new house. But I feel like that's the medicine, because probably all of us have some kind of thing in the outlet, because it's a big transition from inside to outside. And that threshold moment of the outlet, that's right where it is.
I would agree with you. We all do have some kind of outlet dynamic, because we did all move through an experience of moving from the inside to the outside. And it can come up in a different ways. I mean, the dynamics part of it, I don't know. I don't know if this is true, but that's what's coming right now. But the dynamics part of it is really, our experience that is can be very dynamic from person to person and from moment to moment. And it's a whole journey through that completion, through that outlet part of it. And we've talked about before the preparation, and then how the middle could be, a lot can happen during that, or it could be smooth. But then what happens towards the end? You know, do we need those extra layers of support? Was there something that, like, all of a sudden was unexpected that came in? And how do we orient to that? How do we get the layers of support for once we do have some awareness of what our outlet dynamics were? Can we call in the support that we might need, that can be, so that it can be different, so that there's a little more awareness to it? Is there some intentions, like what you said, Eileen? Can we have a different intention for this outlet that can be different than how it was back then? And so, like, as we're talking about any of these imprints, that's what we're really hoping to bring, is some awareness of what some of those imprints can look like, but also what can we do? How can we start to perceive it differently, or bring in the things that might help us today and have more choice in how we proceed? Yeah.
That's good. It's a step-by-step sort of process that you outlined there.
Yeah.
So then I think it feels complete to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And so that it would be sort of, I mean, because we are completing, like, how, what I would invite people out there, how do you know, like, once you are aware of your completion process, like, what lets you know something feels complete?
It's a good question.
And so, yeah, so just now it feels,
Somatically, I could just feel like quieting. There was a quieting energy moving down and smoothing out and being quiet. Space opened up. I didn't feel like adding to. Keep going.
What I often feel is I feel a wave. I feel a wave. And just now I actually also felt the wave completing. So that's how I can feel completions in my own way.
yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening.